Hey guys, I'm the MMA Breakdown, and we're doing predictions for UFC Fight Night 106. Belfort versus Gastelum. I'm sorry for another late video, you guys. I do have an excuse this time, though. I've been sick this whole past week, and I still am. But I'm sorry. Please forgive me, and please don't unsubscribe just yet. I know it's frustrating for you guys, but I'm going to try very hard to get back on track here. Make things right and have my predictions out for Manoa versus Anderson hopefully this weekend. Yeah. So, and follow me on Twitter. My link is in the description at MMA Breakdown 0. But Belfort versus Gastelum. There's some great matchups on this card, but you guys know me. I'm just not excited for it. Especially coming off of 209, which just felt so refreshing, and also because there's another terrible fight night following this one. I just can't muster up any enthusiasm for this, but anyways, I'm going to try to fly through this quicker than I ever have before. So on Fight Pass at middleweight, Gareth McLellan versus Paulo Enrique Costa. I saw a couple of Costa's fights, and he looks like an aggressive, dangerous Muay Thai striker. And McLellan has just looked bad in the UFC. I don't think he's a UFC caliber fighter at all. Got dominated on the... Besides his one dominant finish over Bubba Bush, which, means nothing. Got dominated on the mat by Fabinski. Siedenblad, who is not a great striker at all, destroyed him on the feet. And then Alessio Di Chirico pretty thoroughly outworked him. Was a split decision, but I thought Di Chirico pretty clearly won. And if I recall correctly, I think he bloodied up McLellan pretty badly in that fight. But McLellan just seems like an unskilled guy. And Costa, like I said, fairly dangerous Muay Thai striker, aggressive. If McLellan got destroyed on the feet by Siedenblad, I don't think he's going to fare well at all against a guy who seems to have a more skilled, more diverse striking game like Costa. So Costa by early knockout, first or second round. Probably taken by second round TKO. All right, at featherweight, Honey Jason versus Jeremy Kennedy. I think there's a chance that Kennedy wins the fight just because Jason, he struggles against wrestlers. We saw that most recently against Bermudez, also against Damon Jackson in his fight before that. Jackson was very successful early on, taking him down, ground and pounding him. But Jason is dangerous off of his back. That's how he ultimately ended up beating Jackson. He has a good triangle off of his back. We also saw that early in his career against Mike Wilkinson. He's also been known to pull guard. So I think Kennedy, who seems like a one-dimensional wrestler, if he's really committed to pursuing the takedown and gets it, I think Jason will probably end up submitting him off of his back. So I'm going to take Jason by submission, by triangle, but also on the feet. Jason is a dangerous striker. He has pretty sneaky, unassuming power. Knockout wins over Steven Seiler, Sam Sicilia, and Kennedy to me just looked like one-dimensional wrestler, very average fighter. In his debut win over Alessandro Ricci, there was a lot of hugging up against the fence, a lot of unsuccessful takedown attempts. Pushed a good pace and showed good cardio, and was an effective grinder, but I don't think that's enough to beat a guy like Jason, who's dangerous on the feet and on the ground. And again, if he does get that takedown, or Jason even might give up the takedown to get the fight to the ground, I think, like I said, from there he will be able to submit Kennedy. But Jason, he's had some really questionable performances. The decision loss to Peralta, not good. Early on getting out wrestled and ground and pounded by Damon Jackson was impressive. In his most recent fight against Bermudez, just got dominated against a guy who's pretty hittable and kind of easily hurt, and was never able to get enough time on the feet to capitalize on that. So Jason, a bit of an inconsistent fighter, a head case at times. I don't think, by any means that Kennedy should be completely discounted here, but I think it's pretty likely Jason wins, and I will be taking him by submission. All right, on to the FS1 card at lightweight. Michel Prazeres versus Josh Burkman. This is an interesting fight here. I don't think it's going to be a good fight, but an interesting matchup to analyze. Prazeres has looked really good lately. His game's really clicking. He's pretty limited in what he can do. Has a very meat and potatoes boxing game. A short, compact guy, so can't do much, but use basic short boxing combinations to close the distance, to grab hold of his opponents and wrestle them down, and from there, doesn't hold his opponents down very well, but is able to continually get them to the ground and control them and dominate the round. But the guys that he's been beating, I don't think any of them, well, they're all bad strikers, and none of them have nearly the craft that a vet like Burkman, who has shown knockout power in the past. None of the guys he's beaten recently have those skills, especially guys like Gilbert Burns, whose striking is just not coming along. J.C. Cottrell, and the Lazaro fight. I thought he lost that fight from what I remember. I didn't rewatch it for this pick, but I thought the length of Lazaro, from what I remember, was giving him a lot of problems. Lazaro was scoring with that jab. And Burkman, I can't remember a fight where he was really out-grappled. So I don't know how likely it is that Prazeres is going to be able to do what he's done to most of the guys he's beaten to Burkman, just kind of march him down and just ragdoll him. And Burkman actually is an underrated grappler. He has some submission wins against John Fitch. I know it came after he hurt him on the feet. And the Steve Carl fight, where he did eventually get submitted, but he had, I think, a locked-in triangle before he got submitted by a triangle. So Burkman might have the grappling skills to not get completely dominated by Prazeres. But why I'm taking Burkman is because on the feet, I think he's going to give Prazeres a lot of problems as much as Prazeres comes forward. And as I mentioned, how Prazeres struggled against Lazaro with the length and fighting these other guys like Burns and Cottrell, who just had nothing to offer on the feet. I think Burkman might be able to catch him coming in, or at least counter him pretty effectively to maintain some distance. So I'm going to take Burkman by decision, and also that fight against Felder, while it was a really low output fight, he proved that he can still give a dynamic, dangerous striker a lot of fits, and he could have easily won that decision. I felt it was a really, like I said, uneventful fight. So I know it's not a very logical pick, and Burkman has looked pretty shop worn and over the hill lately. But I don't know. I think this is a very different matchup from the guys Prazeres has been fighting lately. So I'm going to go with Burkman to edge out a decision, and I think it mostly comes from him scoring on the feet. All right, at bantamweight, Yahya versus Joe Soto. I have to go with Yahya here all the way. Soto, even in the fights he wins and where he wins by finish, he does badly in those fights. Like against Chris Beal, he was losing that fight before he had a sequence there where he was able to connect on the feet and shoot in on Beal, get him down and submit him. He was getting outstruck before that. And even in his fight against Marco Beltran, where they scrambled and they ended up in, I think, 50-50, or Soto just went straight for the knee bar and he was able to get him. Beltran landed some elbows on his head that just cut him wide open, and it's just like this guy's always on the precipice of defeat. And had a terrible loss to Anthony Burchak, where he just was totally overwhelmed by the pressure, the forward movement of Burchak, and just kind of shelled up and just kind of let himself get knocked out. So going with Yahya, Soto's a skilled grappler, but Yahya just has proven time and time again that he's a really savvy, dogged grappler. He's taken he's taken out young guys like Matthew Lopez, who are also skilled on the ground and have a lot of promise, and Michinori Tanaka, who's a solid grappler. Yahya took him out, almost submitted him in that fight early. So I don't see Soto being a better grappler than Yahya, maybe a more opportunistic submission fighter, but Yahya just has great scrambling, a good, very good positional grappler, always good at maintaining position and coming out on top in scrambles, and Joe Soto's just a really inconsistent fighter. So Yahya, can't take him by submission, but I think a decision is likely here. All right, at welterweight, Sergio Moraes versus Davi Ramos. I'm kind of bummed that the original matchup isn't happening, Moraes versus Max Griffin. I thought that would have been a way better matchup, but Davi Ramos, newcomer, saw a couple of his fights, has a TKO win over tough Latin America finalist Jose Quinones, had a really dominant first round TKO win over him. And another fight where he showed off his jiu-jitsu skills. I think he is a frequent jiu-jitsu competitor, and he was able to get the fight to the ground and dominate. Seems like a dangerous guy, aggressive with his striking and his ground game. Does have a loss to David Rickles, I didn't watch the fight, but on paper that's not a terrible loss, but not a great one. But Sergio Moraes, I just don't trust the guy. Used to be a really dominant grappler. Seemed like a guy who's just operating on a higher level on the ground than his peers in the UFC. I mean, you go back and watch his fight against Neil Magny, and the guy just looks amazing on the ground. But since then, has had some really lackluster fights. Fights against Labute, Akhmedov, Chagas, and Otto. Even though he's won all those fights and one draw against Chagas, could have easily lost them. Seems to have fallen in love with his striking, which is very mediocre and not good. That Akhmedov fight, he was just getting outpointed for the whole fight right up until the end of the third round, where he was able to land kind of a come from behind miraculous knockout punch, and he gets into these really slow kickboxing matches against Labute and Otto, where he could have lost, and that Otto fight went to split decision, and then Chagas hurt him badly at one point in that fight. I think it was a head kick, and for as much as they scrambled and engaged each other on the ground, Moraes couldn't submit him. So I'm not high on Moraes anymore, and an unknown guy like David Ramos getting his opportunity looks like a dangerous fighter, and because of his jiu-jitsu background, might have the skills to hang with Moraes on the ground, and won't be afraid to engage him there. I'm going to take Ramos. I'm going to take Ramos. Moraes just has not been impressive lately. He's just been getting by the skin of his teeth, and he's been hurt. That Chagas fight, Akhmedov was really giving it to him early, so I'm going to take David Ramos. I don't know if by submission or TKO, but I think I am going to take him to win by finish. All right, next fight here. Lightweight Francisco Trinaldo versus Kevin Lee. This is a great fight, and I'm most excited for this fight more than any other fight on the card. Kevin Lee has got great momentum, has gone back to his wrestling. Super dominant wins against Matthews and Magomed Mustafayev in his last two fights. And I think the consensus pick here is going to be Lee. He also has a huge youth and athletic advantage on his side. I think his speed could really aid him in this fight, but Kevin Lee is still that guy, in the back of his mind and everyone else's mind, is that Leonardo Santos knockout, looming, and his striking game is it's decent as far as kind of a meat and potatoes boxing game when he's able to get into the pocket, and if he does, if he is able to clinch with Trinaldo, get him against the fence, or just get inside, make it a clinch battle, make it a dirty boxing type fight, I think he could have a lot of success. But if he can't, and this stays at any kind of mid or long range, I think Trinaldo will have a huge advantage over Lee with the kicks, and we saw Lee eat some pretty heavy kicks from Mustafayev. I think Trinaldo could hurt him with body kicks, and he could knock him out with his hands. That Santos loss, if you look at that Fran Escudero fight after that Santos loss, that was a bad fight. Lee barely did enough to win it. Escudero tagged him a few times. His striking game when he's had to fight these craftier guys, it just doesn't hold up. And Trinaldo's been on a tear, 7-fight win streaks, got huge momentum. It gets really wild at times. It really blitzes guys, and that could open up the takedown for Lee. But Trinaldo does chain his strikes and his takedowns pretty well. And Trinaldo has been out-wrestled before by Michael Chiesa and was controlled pretty easily by Chiesa. And, his cardio's improved lately, but he's still that guy who comes out really hard against Piotr Hallman and gets submitted. So I could see him expending himself early, trying to get the finish. And if he can't, I think Lee can just take over with his wrestling, especially, like I already mentioned, with his youth and athletic advantage and getting a submission. But I'm going to say that Trinaldo's able to create enough separation on the feet. He's able to use those body kicks and use will be a length reach advantage for him, and keep Lee on the outside and make this kind of a wild kickboxing fight like he did against Felder and Pearson, Medeiros, and maybe mix some takedowns in there. And another thing is that Lee is not a powerful striker at all. I can't recall him hurting anyone with his strikes. I mean, he has outpointed guys, but like Michel Prazeres, but even in that fight, was not able to hurt Prazeres. And Prazeres is not anywhere near the level of striker Trinaldo is, so I don't see Lee, even if he's able to get inside, make it a phone booth boxing match. I don't really see him having the power to hurt Trinaldo. I think he would have to get the win by his wrestling, which could happen, but I'm going to go with Trinaldo here. I think he might get a TKO win. So that's my pick. Trinaldo by second round TKO. All right, on the FS1 card at welterweight, Alex Oliveira versus Tim Means. I picked Oliveira against Means in that first fight. I thought he would have the wrestling and strength advantage, and Tim Means just destroyed him in that fight, even though it only lasted a round. Means looked awesome. I thought it was probably the best performance of his career, and I think he's just going to pick up where he left off. Had a huge speed and power advantage against Oliveira, was just able to beat him to the punch, has that really sneaky clinch striking game, those elbows and those short shots from close range. I think he's going to go after Oliveira early and hurt him. I think Oliveira did land a takedown in that first fight, but Means was able to get up pretty quickly. So my only concern is that Oliveira will have a more concerted, more cautious wrestling approach here. Really try to keep his distance and look for that takedown, but I think his only hope of winning would be to out-wrestle Means for 3 rounds, and Means, I think, is just way too dangerous for that. And even off of his back, Means is scrappy. We saw that in the Jorge Masvidal fight. So I think Oliveira's just outmatched here. He's not even when he wins, it's rarely very impressively. His win over Muntazeri was not very impressive. And even against Will Brooks, he really has to employ his physical and strength advantages against his opponents before he's able to really, threaten a finish. So Means is just a far more skilled fighter. I'm going to take him here by, I'm going to say first round TKO. I think he just does what he did in the first fight. All right, women's bantamweight, Betch Correira versus Marion Reneau. This is a tough fight. I wanted to take Reneau because she does finish occasionally at the UFC level, and Correira's only finish in the UFC has been against Jessamine Duke, which really means nothing. But even in the fights that Reneau has finished, her last fight against Dudieva and then her fight against Andrade, she was not winning those fights. Against Dudieva, really struggled with the size, with the clinch and wrestling game of Dudieva. And Andrade, she got dropped. That's what led to the triangle that ended the fight. Andrade dropped her. Struggled with the size of Dudieva, and Correira's going to have a size and I think strength advantage here against Reneau. If Reneau is able to successfully strike from the outside and keep Betch from closing that distance and brawling with her, I think she has a chance of winning a decision. But Renault's not, really great at that. And she likes to come forward a lot as well. So I think it's she's going to give Betch the fight she wants. She's going to, be in range for Betch to make it dirty, make it a brawl. I think she does have the cleaner strikes, definitely the more precise strikes, the better jab, straight punches. But Betch has fought way higher level competition in Jessica Ai, Rousey, even Raquel Pennington, I think. So, and is not easily hurt. Rousey was the only one to finish her, so I don't know. Reneau, when she's able to finish, she looks good, but when it's a points battle, it doesn't do so well. I think I have to go with Betch to win by decision, but Reneau could upset here. I think she does have, like I said, the more precise strikes, has some submission ability, some ground ability, but I think that size of Betch and the volume is, I think that's going to give Reneau some problems. All right, at flyweight, UCA Formiga versus Ray Borg. Great matchup. I think it's very evenly contested. Formiga has beaten similar fighters to Borg. Most recently, he beat Dustin Ortiz, who has a win over Borg, and their fight was very closely matched. And he's beaten other good grapplers like Wilson Hayes, but all of those fights he has not been able to finish. Dustin Ortiz, Wilson Hayes, Zach Makovsky, and even against Makovsky, probably his most dominant win that wasn't a finish. Was for as much as he took the back and controlled Makovsky on the ground, was not able to submit. And then the Heiss and the Dustin Ortiz fights, well, especially the Heist fight. That was pretty back and forth on the ground, and and against Ortiz, had a pretty easy time out grappling him and outstriking him, but doesn't often capitalize and get that position where he can finish the fight. And Borg is a superb scrambler. I think he can. I think because Formiga is more of a scrambler than a kind of a lockdown submission artist, I think he's going to give Borg the opportunity to stay in this fight by scrambling with him. And Borg is a great top position grappler. He is very strong from there. We've seen really dominant grappling performances out of him against Chris Kalades, his last fight against Louis Smolka. So I think Borg, especially since moving to Jackson's, he just looked awesome against Smolka. He looked reinvented. His boxing looked sharper than ever and looked great on the ground. I think Formiga's going to make it competitive. I could see him winning the fight. I'm going to take Borg, but I could see Formiga winning a round, taking his back, just having the better jiu-jitsu chops. But Borg is so determined and aggressive, and I would say a better control grappler than Formiga as far as holding guys down for a length of time. And I think he's going to have enough of those moments getting on top of Formiga, holding him down. And he's a great back taker himself. I think that he's going to have the bigger moments in this fight and win a decision. On the feet, Formiga has more finesse to his striking game, whereas Ray Borg has a really meat and potatoes boxing game they showed against Smolka. So I think Formiga might have a slight advantage, but I think it's pretty even there. And I think Borg, especially now after having moved to Jackson's, he's a better grappler than Ortiz, and with his wrestling combined, I think he's a better grappler than Wilson Hayes. So I think this is a little higher class of fighter than what Formiga has fought recently. So Borg by decision, but it could be the case that Formiga just his jiu-jitsu game is too much for the wrestling based style of Borg, like it was against Ortiz and Makovsky, but I like Borg here. He's been looking really good, making big strides. I'm going to take him to win a decision. All right, at lightweight, Edson Barboza versus Beneil Dariush. Another fantastic matchup, and I think it's very closely matched and really could see either guy winning. This is 50-50 to me. But initially, and I think the consensus pick is going to be Barboza. Initially, I felt that Barboza's Muay Thai game and his high output, really varied Muay Thai game was just going to be way too much for Dariush. Not to the point where he would finish him, but I think easily point him. But Dariush has been making huge strides fight to fight in his striking. Didn't do great against Rashid Magomedov in his last fight, and won a unanimous decision. I thought it could have just as easily gone to Magomedov. But he did well against not a guy on the level of Barboza, but a really skilled striker. And we saw his power against James Vick. since that Michael Johnson fight where he just looked like he could not strike at all and was very desperate for the takedown. He's looked greatly improved against Vic and Magomedov. Now, I don't think he's as skilled and doesn't have as refined a Muay Thai game as Barboza with the kicks and even the punches, but the one edge he has against Barboza, and it's just what's plagued Barboza for his whole career, is the pressure and the willingness to press and come forward. And I think that's what's going to give Dariush the edge here against Barboza, the same edge that he had over Magomedov. Barboza has not dealt well with pressure. If you look at the Jamie Varner fight, the Paul Felder fight, the Danny Castillo fight, and even his last fight against Gilbert Melendez, these guys with much more basic boxing games, these boxer wrestlers, have been able to walk him back, put him against the fence, and land those boxing combinations. And he hasn't really been out wrestled by any of those guys, but I do think that that's a kind of an ace up Dariush's sleeve that he can go to really at any time is the wrestling. He's not a great wrestler, but he is a superb grappler. And Barboza hasn't had to deal with a great wrestler maybe in his whole career, and is not a guy who's been out wrestled really. But you look at the Castillo fight and the even Terry Edom way back in the day, very mediocre fighter was able to hit takedowns on him. I think Dariush can go to those takedowns and really have an advantage there if he is able to get Barboza down. But I don't actually think Dariush is going to have much success taking him down. I do think he will be able to come forward, drive Barboza back into the fence, clinch with him like he did against Magomedov, and just letting his hands go more. Barboza sometimes when he gets out to a lead, he cruises, lets his foot off the gas like against Bobby Green. It doesn't do a whole lot. Even that Pettis fight, he should have been able to finish Pettis, and Barboza just never really puts his stamp on a fight unless the guy's completely athletically outmatched, like Evan Dunham. Whereas Dariush has really been looking to impress with his striking. Comes forward, looks for the knockout, lets his hands go. And even the Paul Felder fight, Paul Felder and Barboza. Felder was really looking for the knockout, and Barboza kind of had his back to the fence for most of that fight. So I like Dariush here to just edge out a decision just by being more aggressive and being the one who presses the clinch game against Barboza. So Dariush by decision. But it really is such a close fight, and Barboza really does have the greater striking technique that it could be too much for Dariush, but Dariush by decision. All right, a light heavyweight, Shogun Hua versus Gian Villante. Shogun Hua all the way. He could get knocked out by Villante. Hua has looked shop-worn and chinny, just like all aging legends do, but Gian Villante is not Ovince St. Preux, and Gian Villante has looked I'll say he's looked way worse against way worse competition. His last fight against Saperbek Safarov, the guy was about to get knocked out, and that's been a motif in Villante's career. Not only Safarov, Corey Anderson had the guy had Villante fighting on one leg in that fight. Who else? Cody Donovan nearly knocked this guy out before Villante knocked him out, and then the Tom Lawler fight more recently, where Villante, it was the rare fight where Villante was looking really good and then got knocked out. And I don't at all trust Villante to get, or I don't trust Villante to out wrestle Shogun. Shogun was still able to out wrestle Little Nog. And Villante could only out wrestle Fabio Maldonado for a round. So Villante just has a lot of problems being consistent. Too willing to get into a brawl, and he's too hittable there. And always kind of on the brink of getting knocked out. Hua still can land that hard shot. It's what saved him against Corey Anderson in his last fight. And like I said, the wrestling, even in a wrestling match, I think Hua would have that edge. So I'm going with Hua. Got to go with him by knockout. If Corey Anderson, and I would take Corey Anderson to destroy Villante in a rematch. If Shogun could still, had enough power to have the bigger moments to win a decision against Corey Anderson, I think he definitely has enough to not only beat but finish Villante. So Shogun by, I'm going to say second round knockout, but a first round knockout wouldn't surprise me either. All right, and then the main event at middleweight, Vitor Belfort versus Kelvin Gastelum. This is an insane matchup, and I really don't want to make this pick because I know I'm just going to get shitted on by everyone, and I know it's probably not going to work out, but it's just the pick that I feel in my heart and in my head. Gastelum, we know has just historically been a slow starter. He was against Kennedy, Nico Musoke, and maybe those are the only two fights, but he was a slow starter in those fights, and Rick Story was able to hurt him in that fight. And I think that people are going to be making too much of Gastelum's power coming off of that Kennedy win. But if you look at his resume before that Kennedy win, what power is there really to speak of? He has put some guys down with his striking, like Brian Melanson, who, who's that guy? And what, Nate Marquardt, and end of the road Nate Marquardt. His dominant wins have come from his submission ability more so than his striking. So being a slow starter, not being a very big power puncher, I think that is that's a very favorable situation for Vitor Belfort in the first round. This goes past the first round, especially if it goes past two, then at that point I would just take Gastelum, or if I could lock in a bet after a round, I think it's Gastelum's fight. Even not being a big power puncher, Belfort is chinny. Gastelum has a very consistent boxing game, which has been getting slightly better fight to fight. And the wrestling, I think it can take Belfort down as the fight goes on. He'll have the better cardio and impose that size and weight on him. And I would actually pick him to finish Belfort at that point by submission. But as far as the first round goes, Gastelum's not. I don't think he's that great a wrestler. I mean, look at the Neil Magny fight, how much he struggled to get a takedown in that fight. But he's not going to have the takedowns or the mount of Jacare. And he's not going to have... Gastelum is not Gegard Mousasi. He's not Chris Weidman. And even though Belfort got destroyed by all of those guys, if a post-TRT Belfort can have Weidman on the ropes in the first round, even sneak in a few hard shots against Mousasi and knock out Dan Henderson, I don't see why he can't knock out Gastelum in the first round. A guy who's been a slow starter, who lets Kennedy just lock on to him and ragdoll him for a bit there. Nico Musoke did the same thing, by the way. You look at the Musoke fight. He had a slam takedown against Gastelum from the back position, having the tight waist. But Belfort's still a really dangerous guy in that first round, even a post-TRT Belfort. So, and Gastelum is not, he does not have the wrestling or the grappling of Weidman or Jacare, and he's not, he doesn't have the volume and or the power or even I think the striking technique of Mousasi. So he definitely wins. The fight goes into the second or later rounds. And I think he does have the wrestling to take down a tired Belfort in the later rounds and either pound him out or submit him. But early in that first round, and with this being maybe Belfort's last fight, and being the main event in Brazil, I think the guy's going to be really motivated. So I have to take Belfort by first round knockout. I know it doesn't make any sense. It's not a logical pick. I'm definitely not confident in it, but that's the pick I would make if I'm truly picking the guy that I think is going to win. Belfort by first round knockout. And one other thing, hearing Belfort talk about the Legends League or whatever, that he wants WME to get going, where all the old timers are going to fight each other. That, to me, after hearing that, I almost immediately was going to take back everything I said and take Gastelum. Because that, to me, sounds like he doesn't even have the confidence that he's going to win this fight against Gastelum. It sounded like an excuse to kind of soften whatever defeat was going to come his way at the hands of Gastelum. Kind of setting up an excuse or a cushion there for him to fall back on if he just got destroyed by Gastelum. But those comments aside, I think this is the most beatable opponent Belfort has had since I don't know. I have to pull up his record. Maybe since Bisping, or even before that, Akiyama. I mean, look his resume: Rockhold, Dan Henderson, Weidman, Souza, Mousasi. I think this is the most favorable matchup for Belfort and the most beatable opponent, at least in the first round. So Belfort by first round knockout. That's it. Thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at MMA Breakdown 0. Link is in the description. And I will be back with my predictions for the next event, Manoa versus Anderson. Thanks, guys. See ya.